This is Death Korps of Krieg. They're faceless, they like siege and trench warfare, and horses? Why would they bring horses to a tank fight? To any fight in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. This Death Korps army is now part of my collection, thanks to my friend Scott Schubbe. And in this video, I go over each unit. Because there's questions here, like why is this dude carrying bloody clothes and helmets? And what's a breaching drill? It's actually kind of cute if you think about it. Plus GW recently announced new models, so we're gonna be looking at those too. MiniWarGamer Dave here from MiniWarGaming.com, and I'm gonna show you what passes my rule of cool. Sponsored by Wayland Games, more on that later. Before we dive into the models, let's bring us up to speed. First question I had was, what makes the Death Korps of Krieg different from other Imperial Guard regiments? We see the Cadians are known for their disciplined defense, Catechins for their jungle fights, but the Death Korps is known for something a little different. They specialize in siege warfare, utilizing heavy artillery and waves of infantry to grind down their foes. They got these gas masks, they're pretty distinctive, that's a massive part of their aesthetic, and they have this willingness to take massive casualties in a battle, which apparently is not a problem for them, like not even a little bit. I get zero hint that this is an issue. Let's drill a little deeper. The catastrophic nuclear war on Krieg was caused by a rebellious faction of its own ruling elite, led by the planet's governor. This insurrection sought independence from the Imperium of Man, rejecting its authority and severing ties with the Adeptus Terra, which is another name for Earth in the 41st millennium. The Loyalist forces, who remained faithful to the Emperor, refused to accept this betrayal. In their desperate bid to reclaim the planet and uphold their duty to the Imperium, the Loyalists initiated a Scorched Earth campaign. Kill, maim, burn. Probably not how they originally intended it, but that's how I'm interpreting it. This included unleashing nuclear and chemical weapons, devastating Krieg's surface, and reducing it to a toxic, irradiated wasteland. The war dragged on for centuries, but the Loyalists ultimately prevailed. However, the cost of victory was pretty immense, leaving the planet permanently scarred and its people burdened with a deep sense of shame and penance. What kind of a story is this? What's happening here? This is kind of horrific if you think about it, but that's Warhammer 40k, so moving on. This grim legacy shaped the ethos of the Death Korps of Krieg, who now seek redemption through unwavering service and self-sacrifice in the Emperor's name. That's crazy. When I first saw the aesthetic of the gas mask, I thought of Fallout New Vegas, and then I thought of World War I, and then all these things came together, and then Scott was like, hey Dave, do you want this army? And why are you gonna offer me plastic now? I'm gonna say yes to it, unless it's a certain breed of plastic. But this, yeah, I think I can get interested in this. Especially units like this. I keep on picking this up for some reason. You know what, let's waste no more time. Let's go right into the army now. I have three types of units: infantry, mounted, and vehicles. But first things first, I gotta know the answer to this. How can a horse survive any sort of environment here? Like, what's going on that they would bring horses to a battle? Well, apparently they're mounted on genetically engineered steeds known as Krieg mounts. These troopers excel in shock assaults and rapid flanking maneuvers. Krieg mounts are bred to withstand the toxic and irradiated environments common to Krieg, often enhanced with cybernetic implants or increased resilience. So they're not actually horses, they're cyber horses. That looks like a gas mask for a horse, that's not armor. They are typically armed with explosive-tipped lances called hunting lances, as well as las pistols or close combat weapons for melee engagements. Clad in protective gear designed for hazardous conditions, they charge enemy lines to break formations, sow chaos, and exploit vulnerabilities. Their tactics often involve high-risk maneuvers that accept heavy casualties as a necessary cost for achieving mission objectives. So I picked up this miniature, or miniatures I should say, and then one guy's holding a big cable that goes into the fuel pack for this massive flamer. And I thought to myself, that's pretty cool. It's rare that you see two minis on one base, and that made me look at the other models, which are the teams. And I just think they inherently look cool because it's almost like a mini diorama. The one dude has the binoculars, he's gonna see what's in the distance. While the other guy is, what is he doing with his head to the side? He's bird watching. He's not looking through the scope of that thing. That's hilarious. Maybe it's just one of those days where they've been waiting like 12 hours. A ladybug lands on their shoulder, and that is the most exciting thing that happened that day. This is Warhammer 40k. What are the chances of that? The chances are it's constant war, right? Or like he sneezed to the side. Probably more likely. Death Korps of Krieg heavy weapons teams are specialized units. These teams consist of soldiers trained to operate heavy weapons such as heavy bolters, blast cannons, autocannons, mortars, and missile launchers. And they employ these for several reasons. One is siege warfare expertise. We already established they specialize in trench and siege warfare, which often involves assaulting fortified enemy positions. Next would be fire support. The heavy weapons teams offer crucial support to infantry units by targeting enemy armor, aircraft, and massed troops. This support enhances the effectiveness of frontal assaults and defense operations. And of course, the third reason, which is attritional tactics. Embracing a doctrine of attrition, the Death Korps aim to wear down the enemy through sustained and overwhelming firepower. Heavy weapons are essential for delivering continuous damage over extended engagements. So yeah, when they're fighting for centuries, I think that's just the name of the game there. That's their life. They're born and bred to do this all day long, and they want to die in battle. Kind of like Death Company. Death Company, Death Korps. I think there's a theme here. Let's move on to the infantry. Starting with the Commissar, which are officers within the Imperial Guard, or the Astra Militarum, which still feels weird for me to say, shows how long I've been playing this game. Their primary role is to maintain discipline, morale, and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor among the troops. As agents of the Commissariat, they have the authority to enforce strict adherence to orders and the Imperial Creed. These guys mean business. And they achieve all of this by enforcing discipline because they have the power to punish insubordination, cowardice, or heresy, which isn't heresy to me. It's really not. It's just a different viewpoint. It's a different way of looking at it. Facts. Or carrying out summary executions to set examples. So they set the example. They also achieve their goals by inspiring the troops. They lead from the front and display courage under fire to motivate soldiers and prevent wavering in the face of the enemy. They're actually pretty brave if you think about it. Think about all the threats that exist in Warhammer 40k, and they're just out there, they're in the front lines, they're like, hey, you stay in line. In fact, if you run away, I bet they'll gun you down. That's accurate, right? Like they are there to enforce a very specific mindset. They are indoctrinated to not run away. I mean, objectively speaking, that's kind of useful in a battle scenario. You can't escape that. And lastly, they maintain morale. Through speeches and personal example, they bolster the fighting spirit of the regiments. I wonder how long they live, though. Like, that's the thing. What was the average lifespan of a guardsman? Like 8 seconds? Or I don't know. Maybe it's less than that. Probably like half a second, maybe 4. What do you think the lifespan of a guardsman? And that's what I want to know. It's like the dudes who last longer, who become the commissars. They last multiple battles. Whilst fighting from the front, fortune is on their side. Or they have some sort of aura of protection that just makes it so they don't die first. Maybe they pray to the God Emperor and he's like, please make it so I don't die, so that I can live, so I can inspire the troops. I mean, quite selfishly, I don't want to die here. I want to make sure these guys are all right. Now on to the command squad. Now I picked up this guy and I saw his jacket and I'm like, you know what? It's different. And you don't typically see a dude wearing a jacket when his arms they're not in the sleeves. He's just kind of there, standing, observing. Like he could be having a conversation with someone right now. And it was fun to discover that he comes from a unit that has unique models. In this command squad, he is the officer. The squad itself is a specialized unit that serves as the personal retinue and support team for a senior officer, such as a company commander or a platoon commander. Typical command squad includes the officer, who issues orders and strategizes on the battlefield, veterans, who are experienced soldiers who may carry special weapons, and specialists, such as a medic for battlefield medical aid, a Voxcaster operator for battlefield communications, and a standard bearer who carries the regimental banner to boost morale. I like how he still has the las pistol, even though he has the job of bearing the load of this banner and carrying it around, he still manages to shoot something. There's 9 skulls here, that one needs to be taken out and tossed on the pile. Oh, but the 9 is really bothering me. There should be 8 skulls there. Why aren't there 8? Next, we have quartermasters and their retinues. I gotta be honest, when I saw this dude crawling on the ground for the first time, didn't know if it was an official model or not. It kind of just looked like a bit of a conversion or a third-party sculptor, maybe. But no, part of this unit. A quartermaster serves as both a battlefield medic and a resource officer. Their primary role is to recover the war gear and equipment of fallen soldiers to ensure nothing is wasted. Hence the reason why this dude is carrying the bloody coat, or the coat with blood on it. I should probably phrase it that way. Got 2 helmets up there too, but there's no gas masks. I think the story behind that one is, they just had their faces blown off. That's the only thing that makes sense. But apparently all of this is a reflection of the Death Korps' utilitarian ethos. Gotta make good use of things. Let us not be wasteful here. Be efficient, be orderly and concise, clean up our messes. It's all considerations, very polite. Quartermaster is accompanied by a retinue that may include servitors, medics, and assistant personnel. They administer medical aid, although often only by those who can be quickly returned to duty. Severely wounded soldiers are more likely to receive a merciful death, conserving resources for the war effort. Presence of a quartermaster and retinue embodies the regiment's grim pragmatism and the belief that individual lives are secondary to the success of the mission and the Emperor's will. See, that's what I thought, right? If they had to choose between their own lives, which is what it sounds like, is like their lives are currency. I think it's in the hundreds of billions at this point, right? Which is nuts. I think my two favorite models in the entire collection might be the dude carrying the jacket and the guy who's on the ground. They look really cool. They certainly pass that really cool because they can be cinematic. They pass that storytelling. I want to know what happened. Who shot this guy? Did he die of a broken heart, or did someone try to assassinate him? Maybe it's just like shrapnel on the battlefield. Ah, yes, the Hades breaching drill, designed for subterranean assault, as it obviously looks like it should be, and allows the Death Korps to bypass enemy fortifications by tunneling underground and emerging directly within or behind enemy lines. It's equipped with powerful drills and melta-cutters. It can penetrate rock, soil, and other fortified structures. Its armored hull protects its passengers from underground hazards and enemy fire upon emergence. Once it breaches the surface, it deploys infantry units. The tunnel is the shape of a rectangle, and according to the lore, it's often engineers or combat squads who swiftly engage the enemy from this unexpected vantage point. It just goes first, and then the dudes follow. It's the first time I saw this, I saw these tracks, I'm like, hey, it looks like Leman Russ tracks. Was actually a little confused, because I thought it was maybe the scale was a little smaller than it should have been. But no, this is exactly how it's meant to be. Now on to the tanks, and we're starting with the Death Korps of Krieg Leman Russ battle tanks. Very symbolic of the overall mindset of the Krieg. They're a perfect fit for the army. They're adapted to survive in the harshest environments, and they're manned by crews embodying unyielding discipline. Their presence on the battlefield underscores the Imperium's determination to achieve victory through endurance, firepower, and their willingness to sacrifice. But what makes these different from regular Leman Russes? That was my question. And the answer? Environmental adaptations. Given Krieg's toxic and irradiated environment, their Leman Russ tanks are equipped with enhanced filtration systems and sealed compartments to protect the crew from hazardous conditions. And let's not forget to mention engineering and maintenance. We're talking about the Krieg, so we're going to emphasize reliability. And they maintain their tanks with rigorous attention to detail. Field engineers and tech priests accompany armored units to conduct repairs and ensure that vehicles remain operational despite the harsh conditions of siege warfare. I like the trench kit that the Krieg tanks have. It reminds me of Fury. I know it's slightly different, but it's just the color, the grit, the shape. It's just bringing back that movie specifically in my mind. That movie had a really cool scene of like this, I felt like Red Rover, but with tanks. And that leads us to the Taurox. And what do you think? Better with tracks or wheels? I tend to like the wheels because it kind of makes sense. Although the tracks look really, really cool. The Taurox is a versatile armored personnel carrier used by the Astra Militarum. They're designed for rapid troop deployment and battlefield mobility. It transports infantry safely across the hazardous terrains and into the thick of combat. Let's look at some of their key features. All-terrain capability. They're equipped with rugged tracks or wheels in some variants. The Taurox can traverse difficult landscapes, including rubble-strewn cities and rough wilderness. Armament. Typically armed with turret-mounted weaponry such as autocannons, Gatling guns, or missile launchers, additional side-mounted weapons like heavy stubbers or grenade launchers provide extra firepower. Which finally leads us to this, which I didn't know the name of when I first got it. I had to ask the internet. Thank you, Sprues and Brews, for letting me know that this is a Colossus Bombard. It's a massive artillery designed for long-range siege warfare. It specializes in demolishing fortified positions and entrenched infantry with devastating barrages of high explosive shells. 3 key features. Starting with the armament, the Colossus Siege Mortar. It launches massive shells that can bypass cover, making it ideal for neutralizing units hiding in bunkers or behind fortifications. Its range and power. While its range is not as extensive as other artillery, the sheer destructive force of its shells compensates by inflicting massive damage over a wide area. And the crew. It has a dedicated crew and it has servitors helping out the crew. This is pretty heavy in real life too. I mean, you can feel the weight of the resin. I like this arm in the back, which is the loader. And this right here, I wish cars nowadays had bumpers like that. It would prevent a lot of those annoying dents. Not gonna lie, this actually looks pretty scary. So if I was fighting against this in a game, I would probably want to take it out first. Unless there was a prime mark on the table, then obviously you're gonna try to do that. You know, Leman. Gotta kill him twice though. But I can't say that too loud right now because I'm pretending to be on the side of the Imperium so that I can talk about these models. Because in my mind, all of these Death Korps, they're all Chaos cultists in disguise. Shh. Next up, we have the Gorgon Heavy Transport. Designed for trench warfare and sieges, it serves as a mobile fortress capable of delivering troops into the heart of enemy defenses. The Gorgon boasts thick armor, multiple heavy weapon mounts, and a troop compartment protected by heavy front-facing shields. Its design emphasizes survivability over speed, making it perfect for grinding through fortified positions while shrugging off enemy firepower. Just looking at the 2 flamers per side here, and then the 2 heavy stubbers in the back, manned by 2 of the Krieg. Look at them. They're just standing straight up. They're not strapped in, they're not in seats, they're not buckled, as this is rolling across the battlefield. These little bits come off just to give you a better visual. The dudes inside. And next up we have the Macharius Vulcan, which itself is a variant of the Macharius heavy tank. It's a super heavy vehicle deployed by the Imperial Guard when a full Baneblade is not available. It's named after the legendary Lord Solar Macharius. This tank is designed for pure firepower and massed infantry suppression, which kind of makes sense. It's got some really, really big guns up top. Speaking of which, instead of the standard twin battle cannons, the Macharius Vulcan is armed with the devastating Vulcan Mega Bolter, a rapid-firing weapon originally mounted on Titans. What? Capable of spitting out a storm of high-velocity rounds, the Vulcan excels at mowing down hordes of enemies or saturating a target with overwhelming firepower. The tank also comes equipped with multiple heavy bolters or heavy stubbers as secondary armaments, making it a versatile threat to infantry and light vehicles. Its design is rugged and utilitarian, echoing the mass-tracked behemoths of World War II, with heavy armor and a no-nonsense profile, especially against light armored vehicles. Use overwhelming firepower to crush enemy foes. That's what this tank is designed for. And it's actually, in real life, really heavy. The amount of resin this could, if you threw this at someone's face, you would break a cheekbone, possibly an eye socket. But then you would collect the skull afterwards, so it's all good. You don't want to damage the skull though, you kind of want to make it perfect for Khorne, right? You just at least give him a good offering. I say this very unironically. Okay, let's make no mistake about this. That leads us to gameplay. And what kind of player is attracted to fielding this type and style of army? An obvious one is if you're a strategic thinker, you're probably gonna like them. If you enjoy planning methodical assaults and coordinating artillery barrages, then employing siege tactics will be a rewarding experience for you. If you have an appreciation for lore and narrative, then you'll most likely immerse yourself pretty easily into the storytelling. And depending on what you envision in your brain when you're battling on the tabletop, things like last heroic stands and executing relentless advances, this specific faction is basically perfectly poised to do those things. I myself lean more into the aesthetics of it because I like collecting miniatures more than I like playing with them, apparently. But that is my playing with them. I just like looking at them. I'm still picking up this Hades breacher drill. Just realized that's where the Melta is. It's right inside there. And then these stones come up because all the junk comes out. But going back to gameplay and style, if you have patience when you play games, like you're okay thinking about the long game. You're thinking about like turn 3 and 4 when you're deploying these guys. This also suits that too. You're gonna also make sure that you're okay with losing a bunch of dudes. Removing a lot of casualties off the battlefield not only is lore appropriate, but happens in the game. So if every single model is precious to you, probably not gonna enjoy playing with these guys. In fact, these guys relish in their death. They want to die. They wanna serve the Emperor and do their duty. You win by dying. And ultimately, Khorne is happy, because that's many skulls collected. But going back to the lore for a second, if you like a sad, tragic, kind of grim, hopeless feel backstory to your army, I mean, that's them too. They come from a brutal background. But what army doesn't in Warhammer? I mean, like every army does. Seems like every unit is born out of tragedy, which inherently makes them more interesting. Now it's time to jump into the new Death Korps of Krieg models GW has announced. But first, Wayland Games. For those wanting to get more Warhammer 40k miniatures, and you're in the UK or EU, consider getting them from Wayland Games. Not only can you save up to 20%, but you're supporting a team of pretty cool people. I mean, I'm pretty biased here. Lydia did let me zap people with the price gun. I could have done that all day long. Like, that was so much fun. Plus, I like doing push-ups, which really supports the Just Move initiative, which is combining movement with miniatures. Props to Kath and Sam for doing these squats with me while I visited them in the UK. I've provided a convenient link to their web store in the description. It's also fun to note that they carry Ravage Star. I personally get a jolt of excitement when I go to their homepage and I see this die logo right there. Let's show you some of the new models GW has announced. Starting off with the Death Korps of Krieg Army set, which includes a variety of new miniatures such as combat engineers, artillery pieces, and death riders. It wouldn't be the same without the death riders. You gotta have the horses. Lord Marshal Varnan Dreir, who is a steely-eyed combat veteran who leads from the front and somehow evades death all the time. Like I was saying before, like those Commissars, only he's a veteran. And he's a Lord Marshal. On a steed. Death Riders, squad of 10, armed with las carbines, frag lances for both ranged and melee combat. I kind of want to see like an entire army of Death Riders. I think that would be neat, the kind of like Lord of the Rings amount of Death Riders. That would be cool to see that on the tabletop. As absurd as it is to see horses in 40K, but that would be really cool to see. I think the visual would be neat. Combat Engineers. These soldiers wear extra armor and carry a heavy trench club, along with combat shotguns, flamers, and remote mines for close quarters combat. You always gotta have an engineer in the group. You never know when something's gonna break down. Oh, Bob, listen, this needs fixing. I gotta look through this scope all day long. I gotta sit here, I can't move. Like, I need your help. You need to fix the thing as I'm sitting here. All part of the team. Speaking of teams, you got the artillery. This team can be assembled as a heavy mortar, heavy quad launcher, multiple rocket launcher, or siege cannon, offering versatile firepower. Looks like the artillery's coming back. You're a legend for multiple reasons. Command squad, which includes the usual Vox and medical personnel, but also a Lord Commissar to take charge due to the high casualty rate among Krieg officers. Heavy support squads, which as we know provide suppressive fire. I think it's important to note the Death Korps of Krieg books that are coming out. Scott, thank you for offering me this army. I'm glad I now have it as part of my collection. I love the paint jobs. I do like the aesthetic of the Krieg. I like their grim, dark, gritty look. Feels very 40K. A noteworthy story is the Siege of Vrax. Check that out. I recommend learning more about that if you want to learn more about the Krieg. It seems to be a pretty iconic battle. If you enjoyed this army showcase and you like the presentation, subscribe and leave it in the comments. Let me know. It'll come up in your feed more and I'll do more of it. I'm MiniWarGamer Dave, and this is my Death Korps of Krieg army.